Hey everybody! In this video I'm going to show how I made my spiral staircase in Palia using all the same sort of techniques I've shown in previous videos. There's only a few steps really to follow. It's just a really monotonous process doing all of this, but I'll show you how I did it. Alright, to get started I'm going to build a bit of a jig with these building block walls. And I'm going to be using 2 shelves. With a pole on each. And I'm going to be rotating this one like that. I want to build some steps up here to make this a bit easier for myself. Alright. And when doing things like this, especially when you're going to be doing it repetitively, it's best to minimize as many variables as possible. And for that reason, I'm going to make sure that this is at the very top of the jig here to make it easier on myself in determining placement later, because this will get moved a lot. And then this one, I'm going to place it right about there. I'll be just right below that line, and I'm going to place it there. So then I'm going to pick this one up because I was just using it as a measurement. I'm going to grab this with left click, put it in the spot where that other one was, and I'm going to press the 1 key to pull out an item from an inventory, which cancels the placement. Then I'm going to pull out a second pole and put it on top with left click. Grab the bottom one with left click and place it on the ground with left click. And there's the first rung of the steps. Alright, so after you have the first one done, just gonna do this over and over again. And when I put it back, I'm going to rotate it twice. I'm going to rotate this, again, the very last section. I'm going to put another pole down, and going to move it. Now if you just move the shelf, you'll also want to move the pole as well. If you just move the shelf, then it goes from here and it kind of clips into there, and you can do that, but you really would want the height of these to be as far apart as possible while also not being too high that you can't easily just walk up them with your character. So what I do is, I move the shelf over 1, and then I move the pole over 1. Because if you move the shelf over twice, it moves it too far. So now that I have this in place, I just remember that I'm going to be using this in the center but offset once. Pick up the pole, grab this pole again, place it in the center, offset once, cancel the placement, put another pole on top, grab the bottom pole and place. And there you go. There's the first step of this. Now before you continue making more steps in that manner, I would take a break and bring this up to where you want this to go, just to double check that you have this going in the right orientation. You don't want to find that you went 9 or 10 steps up and only realize that you have it spinning in the wrong direction. And by that, if you take a look, this really needs to go in this specific orientation so it can go over the edge here. The reason why is because placement here is very, very finicky. I have it in a very specific location. If you have it the other orientation, then it's going to be pushed up against the wall, and when you walk up the steps, you'll be like banging your character's head against this part here or this part here. I really do think that this is the best location and orientation for this. I've tried a lot of different locations and orientations, and this just is the best one. And I'll show you more of that at the end, or towards the end of the video. So once you have the proper orientation, or confirmed you have the proper orientation, you just have to continue on doing this over and over for the rest of the pole. When you're doing this, you might get to a point eventually where you can't put it on the bottom here because it just clips in with the jig. And that's when I will grab this and use cancellation method to just move it out of the way. Grab this, bring it to where it is then supposed to go, cancel it again, and then put the pole on top. There you go. Just gotta put this back when I'm done. And keep going. So eventually, as you do this more and more, you'll see this start to come together. And if you have the height of these correctly, they won't overlap, and you'll be able to just easily walk up them. As you can see here, I have made a bit of a mistake already, in that these three are too close together. You can see how they overlap. These ones they don't, those ones they do. That's fine, you can do that. The problem is it's going to make your whole thing a lot taller, or at least you'll have to add more steps, and it works out better the fewer steps you have. So I'm going to go back and redo those. So when you get to this point, you'll see you ran out of pole. I'm going to grab this top one, cancel the placement somewhere, just to move it out of the way, and put a new pole on top. I don't like the rotation, so there we go. Make the rotation the same, just for aesthetics, not necessary. Then continue on, adding more steps. So I have the right height. Placement out there with offset 1 from the middle. I just picked that up because I was just using it as a guide. Put this in the middle, offset 1, cancel the placement, and then put a pole on top of that one. And then I'll grab the entire thing, place it, and there you go. There's the next set of steps. And with this, you can just take this top one and continue on with this one. Now that you have the bottom one in the proper location, we can add it on back onto this one later. Just easier to work with that way. And then just more of the same. If you're following along exactly how I did it, you'll have 7 of each on these poles, you'll need to do one more pull for a 15th rung to get it the exact height that I have it, which I believe is perfect placement if you're doing these all spaced out the same space I'm doing. So again, take off the top, cancel the placement, add one more, and we're going to put this back up here to add the final 15th rung. And remember, we just need to grab the top one, and then grab the whole thing again, cancel the placement, and there you are. Alright, so let's combine these together. We do that by grabbing this and canceling the placement, grabbing the bottom of this, putting it on top. Should be right about there. They should line up, same orientation. Grab the whole thing, cancel the placement. And this here you have the skeleton for the stairs. Next step is creating the steps. Without making another little jig here with 2 shelves, and I'm going to be using a whole lot of these planks. And I'm specifically actually going to be using only these planks. When you place them down, you get a random plank each time. I just want these ones. And the reason why is specifically because one end is shorter than the other. And when I fan them out on top of each other, it just looks better having a shorter end and a longer end like that. You don't have to do that, but I think it looks better. So you have to set out 14 sets, so 28 each. If you do want to have the same as me, then you'll just need to keep pulling these out until you get the correct plank. So what I'm going to do with these planks is I'm going to float them onto each other. This is how I'm going to do that. Place one on one shelf, one on the other, and then I'm going to free place one slightly below the other, and I'm going to cancel the placement. So I didn't actually commit that. I'm going to go into camera mode. Makes it a bit easier to see the height. I want them to be just slightly below. I think that's actually too low. And I'll show you why that's too low in a second. So this has been free placed and cancellationed. I'm going to place this on top of it at an angle, about right there. And then I'm going to grab the bottom one and place it. So when I grab just the one on the bottom, I grab them both together. And that actually worked out pretty well, the placement of them. So I actually like that. So you would just do this 14 times with the 28 boards that you placed out. And I will just give one piece of advice. When you are making these, you actually don't want them to be perfect. You can see here that you can obviously tell that there's one on top of the other. If you were able to, you can get them on the exact same level surface. The reason why you don't want that to happen is because when you have them combined in exact same height, they'll be flickering, and that just doesn't look good. This isn't something you need to do. If you really just wanted to save yourself some time, you could just do it like this. I don't think it looks as good. I think it looks better when they're kind of more smoothed out, but this is a step you could skip if you prefer to save some time doing this. Next thing to do is to get the planks on each of these rungs. I have the skeleton of the stairs on a gourmet butcher block, and ultimately this butcher block will be the anchor point for every single one of these steps. I have it on top of the small crate just to get it off the ground, so it makes it easier for placement. I'm going to use a copper crate because for whatever reason these copper crates kind of just ignore collision, and then I'm going to use a copper pillar, because again it just completely ignores collision, so it makes it really easy. And then I'm going to grab a shelf. Actually, I'm going to put it on just the crate. I don't need the pillar yet. I'm going to use shelf on the very highest point of the crate, and I should need about 3 of these gourmet butcher blocks. These are great for getting just the right height you want. I'm going to do 2 to get the height, and then I'm going to add a third one to represent the anchor point. I'm going to pick up the planks, and it's very important that you're just consistent with this overall, because you're going to be doing this 14 times, and you don't want to have to remember, okay, did I put it on the left side or the right side? Just choose at the very beginning, okay, I'm going to line it up with this first grid line here on the very first section that's placeable. That way you don't ever forget. And then I'm going to just line it up off the grid with this, place it down just to get the lined up right, and it's a pretty good height. I can go a little bit lower with the shelf, and I think I will. So at the highest point, I'm just going to drop it just a smidge. Let's try that. Looks pretty good. And I want it to cover the entire wood pillar as well. So right about there is pretty good. Okay, and then I'm just going to take off the planks and just the top block, put those aside. I'm going to then grab the steps and cancel their placement just to move them out of the way. Grab the butcher block on the bottom, cancel the placement, and the planks. And again, I decided on the right grid line in the very first placeable spot. So now when I grab the top butcher block and place it on the ground, it should snap back into place with the bottom step. And all you gotta do is just keep doing that 13 more times. And as you go higher up, that's when the pillar can be helpful. Eventually you won't need the crate on here, but I'm going to keep using it just until I get enough steps off from the bottom. And then it's just rinse and repeat. So all we gotta do is just keep doing this all the way up for 13 more steps. Just make sure you always keep 2 butcher blocks here. One just so you can always retain the placement location correct, and the second one is going to be representing the anchor point height. And then just place it on the right grid line, the very first placeable location, and then just line it up. Alright, that's going to be too tall. So that's when we'll drop the shelf down. Not going to let us drop it down. So I'm going to instead just put another block under this one to raise it up to the height that we want it to be. That's much better. Alright, so then we're going to grab the steps, cancel their placement away to move them out of the way. Grab these, place them out of the way. Just pick up that. Grab the top cutting board, put it right on top of the other. Perfect placement. And we didn't place that cutting board, we placed it, remember. And right grid line, first placeable spot, right there, snaps to that first grid spot. Grab the top cutting board and place to continue on with the steps. And it's just a matter of doing that for 13 more times. I mentioned this earlier, this flickering. So this is an example of 2 boards that are just perfectly leveled, too perfectly leveled, and you see that they flicker. These other ones, they aren't flickering because they are not perfectly lined up. So these 2, I mean, you can use them. I don't like that, so I would actually suggest remaking this stack here and using a different stack. Eventually, you're just going to keep stacking these higher and higher till the very top. See, I've used these treasure chests as stairs to help me get the height that I need. I've added another pole here to get the height that I need in these steps, and I've almost made it all the way to the top. So let's show the very end here. And again, I've not been doing anything different, just same old stuff. I've only just been adding more height to the pole and the blocks as I go. And of course I made more planks. A lot of planks to make. Definitely gets a bit harder as you go up because of the height, but you make it work. Alright, this should be the last plank. Just cancellation method that away. Grab these, place them somewhere else. Pick up that top cutting board. Get my stairs a little bit closer. Grab the butcher block. Bring it up here with me. Line it up perfectly with that butcher block. And then place on the right grid line. First snap to grid location. Then get just that top block and snap. Place it down. And that completes the staircase. So I got it in the house. Gonna move it up to the top floor. First, I'm gonna grab these and just cancellate here, cancel placement here, just so it's out of the way. Actually, I don't think it's gonna work. Let's place it. Let's place it here. Cancel placement there, and then bring this upstairs. And I already have a marker here of where I place it, which is right here. And it's not going to let me place it there because I think the stairs are hitting the railing. Yeah, looks like that's what's happening. So I'm going to as close as I can. But first I'm going to show you where I have this. And I have it in a very specific location. I try to get it as close to this spot as possible. I'll just freeze here for a second so you can see where it's placed and match yours up. And as I said at the beginning, this is a very specifically chosen location, and I'll show you why. But first, what we need to do is move some of these planks out of the way. Let's bring this up here. Alright, so it'll fit there. Let's cancel that placement. And it looks like maybe these planks are in the way. So I'm going to grab these planks, going to cancellation method them away, and then rotate it on top. Still not right. Still not letting me do it. Oh. Let's try canceling them on there. There we go. So it's perfectly lined up with the placement of that butcher block. And this now, take me up the steps. If you have this at any other location, you'll find yourself hitting this board here and you won't be able to go up the steps, or your camera will cut in through here too close, and it just, you can mess around with it. Maybe you can find a better location, but I think this is just the best location for it to go. So this location is also great because of then adding the floorboards to the attic. And you come down here, you can just snap it right onto that top. And then come check it out. And this will be the starting point for your attic. It still isn't high enough. So what I actually end up doing is adding one more of these free placed on top, right about there. And when I say it's not high enough, adding just this one more gives it the right elevation for you to close this gap here. When you put one of these against the wall, you can line it up and make it pretty much perfectly even. So there's not that space between the wall. And this was free placed without the grid. So this gives us the perfect height by having 2 blocks on the bottom and 2 planks at the top. Gives us the perfect height to start building the attic out. So once you have this in place, you'll have 2 butcher's blocks on the bottom, which will give you the height you will need. Up here you'll want 2 planks. The first plank is the starter plank. The next plank is which will give you the height you need. And the height you need is to match the wall, because you can only put this at, this is the lowest point you can put these planks on the wall here, and you'll see it's not high enough. So to deal with that, go into free place a plank about right on the edge, right about there, as close as you can get to the edge without it, jumping out like that. And then bring these all the way to the end and make sure that they touch the end there, so there's no gaps in the floor on that side. And then we'll just build out from here just a little bit, and I'll show you what I'll do here. Is I add 1 plank right in the middle of these 2 planks, just to cover up that beam a bit, to make the opening from the stairs a bit more realistic, and so that's all even. Otherwise you have this support beam kind of just there, and it just doesn't look quite right. So right in the middle of those 2, well, not exactly, but you can line it up. And then you can place a plank here, so these 2 will overlap. I'm going to add another plank here, free placed, just to cover up this little dip and gap from the stairs. All that's left to do is just continue building out. On the walls here, just free place it on the wall. It'll overlap, just try to get it as close as possible. The next ones you do after that, you can just line it up on the wall again, or the technique I've shown in my previous videos. Alright, so the technique that's a bit tricky to do. I'm going to place board somewhere. I'm just going to place it there, and I'm going to grab it with left click. I'm going to put it where I want the board to go, and I'm going to press left click and the 1 key at the same time. So what this did, and I'll do it again to show you, is this board I moved is still here, because I didn't actually place this board. What I did is I placed the board from my inventory. I have these planks in my number 1 key. There's 48 of them. I'm going to grab this board again, place it here, and when I do left click and 1 at the same time, really fast, it actually places the board from my inventory, just like that. Now I'm down to 47 in my inventory. Doesn't always work the first time. I find it's helpful if you just do left click 1 really fast. And here I'm going to line up this one with the wall. And this last one just lets me clip it into place. Against the wall here, same technique. place a board on the ground, move it, and then press left click 1 at the same time to get it into place. Left click 1. See, it doesn't always work the first time, but if you just do left click 1, usually happens the second time. And then there's the matter of just continuing to build out. Then when you get to the very end here, these should just go right to the edge really, without really too much trouble. There's going to be a bit of a gap there, but I see no reason to cover that up. Alright, so that's pretty much the spiral staircase to the attic. A few finishing touches. You can add a pole to the top here, just to connect it to the roof. And the last finishing touch you can add are poles on the outside, just to keep you from falling off the stairs when you're trying to go up. So I accomplished that by the same method as those boards up the top. And I have the poles in my number 8 spot, so I'm doing left click number 8 this time. Just doing it on each of these on the outside steps. So left click 8, grab the new, and left click 8, and left click 8. There you are. Those will keep you from falling off the side. And there you have it. Spiral staircase completed up to an attic. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.